Alright, so today I'm going to be reviewing Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. And I have a little bit to say about this book. So I actually read it a little bit ago, but I'm finally getting around to doing the review. So the title of this book is Economics in One Lesson, but I feel like a more appropriate title would be One Lesson of Economics. Because while this book does go through a wide variety of topics, I was actually impressed because it's not very long, but it actually touches on just about every topic of economics that you can think of. But what it does is it only gives you one viewpoint on economic thought. It is very much a libertarian-esque viewpoint, and just kind of the broad range of what economics can be. And so kind of the main premise of this book, he kind of sums it up in the very beginning. His philosophy is that a good economist doesn't just look at the immediate consequences of a specific policy, but they look at the second and third level consequences. Basically, they look at the long-term consequences. And that actually is something that I would agree with. I think that is a pretty accurate statement. And so, just that was the very beginning of the book. And then he jumps into it. He starts talking a little bit about the broken window fallacy. And with the broken window fallacy is essentially the idea that, like, say, you're a person and, you live in a house and somebody goes and they throw a rock at your window and they break your window. And kind of the idea behind the broken window, like, theory is that, well, that's actually a good thing because now someone has to come and fix that window. And so it kind of stimulated the economy because it created a job. But obviously this is a fallacy because the person who has to come and fix the window, their time could have been allocated towards something else if the window hadn't been broken. So it actually doesn't necessarily create more economic good. It just directs the economic work towards a specific place. And he talks a little bit about this in the context of war. And a lot of people talk about after World War II, a lot of people said that the rebuilding of the cities that has to occur, that's actually good for economies. It's it gets the economy moving. But in reality, it's if those cities had never been destroyed, I mean, minus obviously the huge human cost of life, obviously that's a massive thing. But just if those cities had never been destroyed, everyone that's building the cities, their time could have been directed towards doing something else, and we would be farther along as a world. And so that is, I always thought was kind of like a silly statement, and he talks about that. So the beginning of the book is actually pretty, wasn't what I was expecting, so I was a little bit impressed. After that, though, it gets into pure just liberty, just exactly with the most simplistic view of economics. It talks about how taxation just, it discourages production because, why would, if I get taxed a certain amount, if you tax me 10%, then 10% of the year I'm working for the government. And so it's just silly. It just completely ignores the fact that you derive benefit from your taxes. Maybe not directly, maybe it doesn't always look like you're deriving benefit from your taxes, but a lot of times the things that you're able to produce, and then that is you're able to accumulate income. A lot of times that income wouldn't have been possible to accumulate without the government. But that just gets into taxation. And then he talks a lot about the minimum wage, and he says that the minimum wage is bad because it's just a very, like I said, the simple libertarian argument where, well, what if somebody's labor isn't, if you're talking about a, $7.25 an hour minimum wage, what if his labor isn't worth $7.25? What if he should only be worth, $1 an hour? And that's just not a compelling argument because that isn't how it should work, because obviously there's a huge power imbalance between employees and employers. And a lot of times there are extenuating circumstances, and just the whole basic concept of not having a minimum wage kind of gets at this idea that employees could just up and leave their job if they don't feel like they're being paid enough. And obviously that's not the case for so many people. If they don't think that they're getting paid enough, it's not always as simple as just, they'll just leave my job and I'll find somewhere that pays more. So it's just kind of a silly concept. The way that the minimum, when you have something, say the minimum wage is $15 an hour, that is not saying that this person necessarily derives $15 worth of value. But what it does is it is saying that this person, by working for you, is giving 1 hour of their time for you. Say you hire a person for 1 hour, they're giving they are giving you their hour for 1 hour. So the onus is on you as the employer to derive $15 for worth of benefit from them. If you can't, if that's your fault. If you can't get $15 worth of value from them, then you shouldn't be hiring an employee. That's how the minimum wage should work. Because when an employee, when they go to you, they are giving, there's an opportunity cost that comes along with them giving up their time to go work for you. So the onus should be on you as the employer to derive the benefit from the employee. And then he talks about, free trade, same thing. It's just the libertarian mentality on free trade. Well, before, if I was growing apples and oranges, I could only grow 2 apples and 2 oranges, and then this other country, they can only grow 2 apples and 2 oranges. But if I just specialize in apples, then I can grow 7 apples, and then if they specialize in oranges, they can grow 7 oranges. And then if we trade, more oranges and apples have been created thanks to specialization, and obviously now all free trade is good, full stop. And just the problem with that is that just isn't how it's just too simplistic. That's not how it works in the real world. A lot of times these trade agreements, there's massive exploitation of like poorer countries. And so that's the problem with most of these like libertarian takes on economics, is that they just don't actually flesh out in the real world. And so what I would say about this book overall is that it's a really easy read. Like I read it one day. It's really short. And I would recommend it if you just know what you're getting into before you read it, because I do feel like it fairly well articulates the libertarian mentality on most of these issues. And it talks about a lot of things. It talks about inflation, it talks about interest rates, it talks about saving, it talks about unions, it talks about a whole bunch of things. And so it covers a lot in a very short kind of amount of time. And so I do think that there is some value from that. It's important to recognize that this isn't economics full stop. This is one specific viewpoint on economics. And so overall, I would recommend this book if you're looking to learn about kind of the libertarian philosophy on economics. It was an interesting read, pretty pleasant writing style. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a comment below. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and have a great day.